Alright, I got the McLaren. I'm just going to start doing some, run some laps, get a feel for the car, and then see if we can make some adjustments. Again, force feedback feels pretty weak right off the bat. One part of that is because the Porsche has such good, or direct, strong force feedback. The other part is I still need to Actually, I think a lot of it really is just the fact that I was driving the Porsche, because I'm already clipping. I did remember to put my fuel, I put it at like 18.5. Been running pretty much 19 gallons for every car, and it's been a couple gallons too much. I think this car consumes the most fuel, though. Right now it's just really just trying to get used to the steering feel, because it is so much weaker, or it just doesn't, it's just weaker. It's like a weaker signal than when I was driving the rough, so probably took me a while to get used to that again, the steering. And again, I'm already clipping, so I'm just going to leave all that alone. Use more rotation in that corner. Kind of had a hunch that McLaren was going to feel the most comfortable, safest to drive, and so far it really does feel that way. But I haven't got close to my limit yet. This feels more compliant. Just a lot better balance to it. Oopsie. Alright, so right off the bat I'm going to put some more, see if I can take some front spring out of the front. Or soften the roll bar. Roll bar's already soft, and I can't take any more front spring out of it. Oh. So. My diff's maxed out. I'll increase the rear spring rate. Ooh, whoa. I always forget that adjust both at the same time. Thought it was off. Yeah. Can go up. Still got one more click we can do. Another 100 pounds in the rear. See if that gives the car more of an oversteer dynamic. That'll do two things. It'll stiffen up the rear springs, so it'll shift more weight to the front when you get on the brakes, and it raises the ride height a little bit more because you have a stronger force pushing up on the car, so when it's sitting at rest, it's going to push the car up just a little bit higher, which having a higher rear end than the front end, again, puts more static weight on the front, so you're kind of almost like preloading weight to the front for more oversteer. Yeah, that's nice. Definitely feel there's more rotation in the car now. So if you guys didn't see my last video with the rough in the beginning, I kind of explained that I learned something new, and I was kind of misinterpreting to you guys one thing, and that was with dampeners. And you got to think about dampeners affect the timing of the handling of the car. They don't actually affect the base handling. You affect the base handling with the springs, the roll bars, ride height, bump stops, stuff like that. But with the dampeners, it's the timing. So it's all about how, with the springs, it's how much weight you shift forward. And with the dampeners, it's how fast do you shift, or how slow do you shift that weight to the front under braking, and you can use that for turning and all that stuff. So I was kind of under the impression that it shifted more weight to the front when you adjusted dampeners. I knew it was like it had to do with how fast it did it, but I also thought it would kind of increase the weight shift to the front. But what it really does is just either slows down or speeds up that weight shift, which then, say you're going into a corner and it's just oversteering going into the corner. Well, if you adjust the dampeners to slow down that front nose dropping, then it's going to oversteer maybe when you're getting to the apex, and maybe that's more of a desirable obviously that's a more desirable characteristic. So that's two ways to think about springs. Is they're the quantitative measure, how much force, and then the dampeners are when that force is going to be applied, how quickly or how slowly. So as I make adjustments, I'll keep reiterating those points to hopefully clear everything up. I'm actually gonna look at changing the gears real quick before we get too much farther ahead, because I'm barely getting into 6th gear there. Oh, can't change gears in this car. It's interesting, like different GT3 cars have different things you can do. This one you cannot. Alright, so just got to go back out and run some more laps now. See how fast we can go with this setup now. I think I got the rotation I need just by making that one adjustment. And that's why, so going back to my kind of misunderstanding of the dampeners versus the shocks and their actual rolls, that's why I was having so much trouble with the Porsche last week in the last corner on Road Atlanta, because I was trying to use the dampeners to get more rotation with the car, and all those dampeners are going to do, at the most of what they can do, is speed up how quickly you get the rotation you already have built into the car. But once you get to that point, it's not going to increase the rotation. It'll just get you there quicker. So that's why I kept, the car would do a nice start, rotate in kind of nicely, take a set, and then just stop. And eventually, like 4 hours later, I adjusted the rear springs, and then everything worked, because now I was actually affecting the rotation of the car, where before I was just affecting when the rotation happened. So now that makes sense why I was struggling so much last week. So always something to learn with this tuning stuff, and I still got a lot to learn. As long as I learn something new a day, I'm pretty happy. It's not even really having to learn something new, it's just, even practicing with what you've just learned to really fully comprehend it and get the most out of it. Yeah, and the rotation feels really good right now. Oops. Just barely touched that grass. Better do that now than in a race. Could use more rotation there. Ah, hit the grass again. I'm gonna blame it on the McLaren being wider in the rough. I don't have the tolerances down yet. That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. Really, the high-speed dampeners feel pretty good. Of course, I'm gonna experiment just so I can keep learning. But and right out of the box, it feels pretty doggone good. .17. Feels really good through that section. Better in the Ford and rough. It just feels more secure. Yeah, it turned beautifully through there when I got on the throttle. It was a little tight getting into apex, but once I got on the throttle, it came around. Dang, my pace is better in this than it is the rough. People were saying this was slower, but in outright speed, maybe the rough's faster, but as like as far as a car that you want for an actual race, this one, I'm going just as fast as I was in the rough, but I'm not driving nearly as hard or scared. Rough, I was pretty much just, while it feels connected, it just feels like once something goes wrong, it can go wrong pretty quick. Where this, I feel like there's a bigger gap in between, or it's just harder for things to go wrong with this car. Unless the Beamer's just crazy awesome, this is the car I'd be driving this week. You know it's a good car when you can already tell that like 8 laps into driving it.
59.76.
If I can just get a little more rotation in the middle of that corner, I might actually take some wing out to do that. But yeah, I could put this setup on the forums right now. I think people would like it. Too deep that time. I really like how it gets around that corner. Get on the throttle early and the car just stays nice and planted. It's not all jittery, doesn't want to step out. I'm struggling on that corner though. Let's see.
.63.
Okay, I don't know if I want to go with less wing or do a suspension change, just because like I'm tight in the middle going through this corner right here, like I'm tight right there. But coming out of the last corner before the back straightaway, I guess, I'm tight on exit. Which means the tightness is happening too soon. But I don't think this is a damper change. I think this is a suspension change. No, I don't want to try the wing. Or I could try the toe. Yeah, I'll try both. I'm going to try the wing first. Take 2 clicks out, see what happens. So, with less wing in the rear, you got less weight pushing down on the rear tires the faster you go. So more of that weight's going to be in the front of the car, or the bias relative to having more wing is going to be more towards the front of the car and higher speed corners. So I don't know how much it'll affect the car on that right-hander before the back straight, but we shall see. The only other place it really should affect the car is the last corner before the front straight. Everywhere else is pretty much low speed corners. Could have an effect on braking too. Initial braking. Also affects the ride height of the car, its speed, so sometimes your rear end can be too low and it can be trapping air, or, you know, like almost acting like a parachute. If the rear end pushes down too much, then you just don't get that good airflow underneath the car. It also takes away from your downforce, so sometimes you decrease the wing, it lets that rear end lift a little bit higher, but usually you adjust that ride height with bump dampeners or bump stops. Nah, it's still pushing there. Just it turns in all right, but once it takes a set, it just doesn't rotate anymore through that corner. See what it did for me in the first corner and this corner. Couldn't feel anything yet. Negative. Going through there. Oh, loose, but I think it's a combination of me carrying too much speed. But because it didn't, I gotta recalibrate some stuff. It didn't help me in that corner before the back straight. I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm gonna put the wing back in it and do something else. I already did this stuff before I started the video. I just have to redo it again. I got some new DSD Ultra boxes for my CSW that's coming soon. These things are pretty sweet. So I'm just figuring out where I want all the buttons and stuff. Alright, so we're going to put more rear ring in. And I am going to... I'll decrease. I'm going to take some toe out of the rear. So what toe is just think about your feet and your toes. And if you got your feet parallel to each other, you got 0 toe. If you point your feet into each other, well, it depends how they measure it, but usually if you have a positive toe, they're pointing outwards, and negative toes pointing inwards, which makes me realize I think I just went the wrong way on this setup. Let me just double check I'm right with that. Okay, see, this is toe in. So it's positive because we're going toe in, we're not going toe out. So yeah, toe in means your toes are pointing in, obviously. So I'm decreasing the amount those 2 back wheels are pointed in, the tires. And that'll free up the rear end, because the more you have your rear tires pointed in, the more they're kind of steering into each other, so the more they want to stay in a straight line, because your right side's trying to go left, your left side's trying to go right. They counterbalance themselves and then they go straight. So that's another trick to snug up or loosen your car. Some people will even go negative tone and they'll have the back tires pointing out. NASCAR, remember when they were crabbing? That wasn't so much toe. Well, it was toe, but both the right side tire was towed out, and the left side, the inside tire, was towed in. So that's why those cars would crab. And the reason they did that is so they could get better rotation through the corners. So if you have both your rear tires towed out, the rear end's going to kind of want to do like a rear wheel steering kind of thing, and you'll get better entry rotation, and it won't track as straight, so it'll continue with rotation going through the corner. Whereas if you had them more pointed in as you're going through the corner, it's going to want to keep that rear end pretty much behind you, so it'll tighten up that rear end. And there's other side effects that think about toe, like if you run too much toe either in or out, you're going to cause extra friction because the tires aren't going the same direction as the car. So it'll cause more heat, cause more friction, can slow you down the straight line. I mean, ideally you want those things dead straight. That's how you get the best straight line speed, but then you have to find the compromise when you get into corners. If nothing else you can do with the suspension can keep that rear end underneath it, you usually need to put more toe in it or take some out. Definitely felt better rotation there, but again, this is just the first lap, so. Stop talking and do some driving. Also going to put start with just one more click rear brake bias right now because I feel like I'm locking up the fronts a little too much on entry to corners. And I did put a lot more front brake bias in it last week just to help with that going into 1 and 2 and 3 in that whole complex at Road Atlanta. So I really needed it for the trail braking through there. And again, brake bias just changes how hard the braking is at the front compared to the rear. If you have more front brake bias, then your front tires are going to want to lock up sooner than your rear tires. If you have too much, your front tires will lock up. That's the first sign that you have too much front brake bias is you just stab on the brakes, your front tires lock up, you just push out and go straight. If you have too much rear brake bias, your back tires are going to be doing more of the braking than your front tires. And if you have too much, I wasn't paying attention, I was going too fast. If you have too much rear brake bias, it just acts like pulling an e-brake. The rear end will want to step out on you, so you just got to find that balance. Sector 4 on purple. Definitely think this car's easy. I mean, it's capable of 58s and race trim. I mean, my optimal's already a 58.9. Definitely able to get up to speed with this car a lot quicker, but again, that could be because I've already driven 2 cars on this track, so I'm kind of getting more used to the track again. But this car definitely does give me the most confidence out of the other 2 I've driven so far. And really, that's what it's all about, is you find something that gives you confidence, go with it.
59.98.
Yeah, so that toe really did a good job of helping give me a little bit more rotation there in the middle. So we'll keep that adjustment. I just went in too hard in that corner. And right up here is where I was checking my brake bias, or where I saw the problem with my brake bias. Can probably go. I'm gonna go one more click towards more rear brake bias because the front end still felt like it just had a little bit too much brake in it. I think I can actually go back a little bit more, but I'll wait a little bit. Basically, the limiting factor to how far I should go back is when I'm trail braking. So I'm going to go back a little bit, one more click. Once it gets to the point where the rear end gets nervous under braking, that's when I know I've gone too far in the brake bias. Nope. Just got too much of that curve and settled the car. That's why it's good, you know, test the curves and all that stuff now, so you know what the car will do if you actually run over those in a race, and you can be more prepared for it. Hey, oh, big purple on that sector.
5.99.
See it did get a little squirrely on me right there. As far as getting on the brakes, the rear end just kind of got, it was had a little bit more life to it than it had before. That feels really good though. Feels like all 4 tires are helping me out there. Instead of just that, I mean, fronts are still going to be doing most of the braking, but it definitely feels like the rears are helping now. Or before, it just felt like the fronts were doing all the work under braking. Yeah, it was way too hot in there. Actually, a race coming up in about 20 minutes. I think I'm going to do that. Just do whatever I have here and just go racing. It's either that or have to wait another 2.5 hours. And that doesn't sound like fun to me. This car's ready to go.
$59.45.
I'm paying attention to how it brakes right now. Alright, it's pretty stable. I think I just had was being a little too sloppy with my braking last lap. But I'm going to keep the brake bias there now. It feels like the best compromise between braking and straight line braking and trail braking. I was so worried about how close I was to the grass, I didn't want to turn into the corner because I thought I was going to spin out. Alright, so I'm going to save it. So I'll take one more quick little glance over if there's anything staring at me that I think's worth adjusting. Doing one last little fix before the race. I like the tire pressures, nice and equal. Now, one thing I was doing that I read up on and I kind of just keyed on is when I was getting on the brakes, the front end was kind of, you know, it wasn't tracking straight. It was kind of darting back and forth, so I'm kind of trying to remember what. I think it was low speed rebound. If I increase low speed rebound in the front, it should, or I'm sorry, low speed bump. But honestly, I can't remember. I think increasing low speed compression dampening will help under braking. I'm just not sure. I'm gonna try it out, give it like 3 clicks. I'm just kind of wary that it'll hurt my corner entry because it'll slow down the. It's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna slow down the pitch of the car from when I go on the brakes. The front, so it's going to slow down that weight transfer to the front, and it's also going to slow down that weight transfer to the right front from the left front, because you're just slowing down the way the springs compress. So both those things actually lead to a slowing down of the weight shift to the front and the front right, which is the most important tire when you're cornering in the left-hander. So they both kind of lead in the direction of oversteer, so I'm not sure if this will actually work. So right now I'm just purposely driving super hard into those 2, like, you know, basic long straightaways, hard brakes, and then right-handers. Those are 2 corners I'm really trying to pay attention to as far as how it behaves under braking. Now I'll point them out to you next lap because I know I wasn't terribly specific just now. This is more of a trail braking corner. This corner up here is more of a trail braking corner. Turn 1's a trail braking corner. Turn 2's a trail braking corner. Trail braking. Then you get to that straightaway, and then it's finally just an actual slam on the brakes corner. Yeah, see, it seems to be pushing a little bit too much there. It's pushing there too. Alright, so this corner up here is one of the corners I was talking about. Increasing this front rebound dampening will help with braking and stability. It definitely does feel more stable.
Car off the track on the left.
This is the other corner I was talking about. Again, really help with stability. But I don't think it's worth it because it hurt my corner. So I'm just going to suck it up in the race and deal with the character flaw. If I wasn't kind of rushing this, I'd, you know, take some more time to fine tune that and all that fun stuff. But the race is about ready to start in 12 minutes. So I'm going to take a little break. So, alright guys, nice little semi-short session. But I'll see you in the race in a couple minutes.